is still swirling. It's fascinating. I'm going to talk about it. Is Vance Joseph getting more of a pass than he should? I'll discuss. And listen, the 2022 NFL schedule for the Arizona Cardinals is going to be a roller coaster of emotions. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Here we go.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. I'm back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the month of June. Taking Mondays and Tuesdays off. Alex Clancy here, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, Wednesday through Friday in the month of June. Free and available on all platforms. Again, I'm your host, Alex Clancy. We've got a lot to talk about in these next 3 days. Got a couple big name guests coming on, bringing back the big guest train for the rest of the week, Thursday and Friday. I'll discuss those a little bit later. Today's podcast is going to be jammed, man. This Kyler Murray conversation I've been having over Twitter with multiple people. Thank you to everybody, who engages. This is what makes sports fun. This is the engagement between the podcast is equally as fun to the actual podcast itself, because this is all just conversations surrounding one of the more polarizing teams in the NFL. A lot of national media doesn't believe in the Cardinal. Never did, hasn't. I had Mina Kimes on. I had Mike Golick Jr. on. The question marks surrounding the Cardinals remain the same regardless of their record. And that's an interesting thing because not a lot of organizations deal with that. Not a lot of organizations say, oh, I don't care what their record is. I don't believe it until I see them win a playoff game. I don't believe it until they go week 1 through week 16 or 17 over 2020 and 2021. People aren't believing it. So the conversation obviously is centralized around Kyler Murray. Going into his 4th year, wanting a contract before the season starts. Does he deserve one? Does he not? Should he get max? Should he not? There is a lot of people out there that don't believe in Kyler Murray. And sure, I'm a Kyler Murray guy, okay? I've seen the history of the Arizona Cardinals quarterback room. Now, aside from a couple veterans who have come over, and Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer, ain't been much. And people forget how many quarterbacks the Arizona Cardinals have had who have been bad quarterbacks, below average quarterbacks. And when you see a guy like Kyler Murray, who's not, a Justin Herbert size, it's like, oh, he's too small. He can't see over the line. He always gets hurt. It's his fault. The team has fallen down the last 2 seasons. He's unreliable. He's a bad leader. He does some of those things. There's merit to them. His leadership skills need to improve. Absolutely. He's not the first quarterback in the history of the damn NFL who's been, demonstrative on the sideline when things seem to all be falling apart, which is what happened the last 2 halves of the last 2 seasons for the Cardinals. But if you look around the NFL, how many quarterbacks would you rather have than Kyler Murray? And I think that it's important to have perspective on what else is out there and infuse that into your thought process of who the Cardinals have calling the plays. And when you look at what else is out there, you've got your 1%ers, okay? You've got your 2%ers, I guess, the young up-and-coming guys, Herbert, Burrow, etc. And you've got the older dudes like Rodgers and Brady, and I'm sure they're still 1%ers. But people hold too much weight, in my opinion at least, and drop in the chat if you disagree with me, that very few quarterbacks have done what a good number of quarterbacks are doing now at a young age. This is a new thing. Sure, you have your outliers, but Peyton Manning took 2 years. If not, I think he was 3-13 his rookie year. Go back to Troy Aikman. That's one of the storied ones. They were terrible his rookie year. And you go with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, guys that were drafted by three of the most stable organizations in the NFL today. And then you go to Kyler Murray, and it's not to say that the Cardinals haven't improved from where they were in the past, where they were, a bottom dweller for a long time. And obviously there's been more wins recently, the Bruce Arians years, and then taking away 2018, they've gotten better and better. But this is the traditional natural progression of a young quarterback. And when you compare it to the potency of things that rarely used to happen, which is happening a lot more frequently now, paints this different picture on Kyler Murray's evolution as a quarterback. And I don't think that specifically is necessarily fair. I don't think that's necessarily fair. I think that it's more Cliff than Kyler. Personally, that's my thought process on it. I can see the other way around. I love having discussions about it. I love having discussions about why people think that Kyler Murray's not the guy. Let me put it this way. Take Kyler Murray off this roster the last 3 seasons and put Kirk Cousins or Derek Carr or Andy Dalton. Who's winning more games? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that it's Kyler Murray. What he's done to the city of Phoenix is given Cardinals fans something they've never experienced before, ever. A franchise quarterback who's been drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. That's never happened with any sort of longevity, with any sort of success. And just because he hasn't won a playoff game through his first 3 seasons doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve a whole lot of cheese. And it doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve to have the key to State Farm Stadium forever. Like for as long as this works. I don't understand the vast polarization with fan bases defending the front office, who an organization that's never won anything, and a young quarterback who's not perfect yet in year 4, going into year 4. That's what I don't understand. Please, I implore you, take this with you. Look at him in a vacuum. Don't look at him compared to other quarterbacks, because the other quarterbacks don't matter. It doesn't matter what Justin Herbert's doing. It doesn't matter what Joe Burrow's doing. It doesn't matter what Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or the old dogs. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing except for what Kyler Murray is doing for this organization. Take that home with you. Chew on it. It's delicious. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Blue Nile. Today, there's moments that you can make sparkle, okay? And if you need some help, BlueNile.com's got you covered. Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off purchases or $500 or more. This podcast exclusive includes engagement as well, which is a huge deal. Use code Locked On at checkout. Vance Joseph, Under a Microscope next. If you've listened to this podcast for 10 seconds, thank you. If you haven't, if this is your first listen, you'll get a crash course in my thought process on the overall framework of the front office and the coaching staff, and why the Cardinals haven't been able to pull it across the finish line without a severe limp like they have the last 2 seasons. Am I giving Vance Joseph too much benefit of the doubt? I'll discuss that next. First, Rock Auto. Rock Auto is, how parents say that, they don't have a favorite child when they're lying to you? I don't have a favorite live read. If I were to have a favorite sponsor, it would be Rock Auto. Because I don't know jack bleep about cars. RockAuto.com makes it easy. I don't have to go to a chain storefront. I don't have to be like, yo, I need help. I know my car has 4 wheels. I know there's an engine in there somewhere, steering wheel, gas is on the right. Like, I got that stuff down. Everything else, no idea. So that's why Rock Auto, it streamlines the whole process for you. Their prices are reliably low. They don't charge you that stocking fee. There's no supply chain issues. They're not going to upcharge you 30, 40, or 50%. And you could do it in your pajamas, man. Go to rockauto.com, and just type in what you need. A couple days later, boom, front doorstep. Go to rockauto.com, right? Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Second segment here, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. If this is your first time listening, thank you. If it's your second time listening, thank you. Why not make tomorrow your third? We have a huge guest. We've got a huge guest tomorrow and a huge guest Friday. I like doing this during the offseason because it brings some national, angles at something we talk about every day. Whether people agree with me or disagree with me, I love it. I love getting guys that and women who are super smart and look at the game from a bird's eye view as opposed to what we do here in the Valley every day. It's just, it's a nice little wrinkle. And it's something that I think is very important as well, because there's a bunch of different ways I can talk about a bunch of different things. I have no shortage of content. The Cardinals, they are just a gift that keeps on giving, which is fantastic. And that's not a slight, that's positive, negative, whatever. There's always stuff going on, which is great. And I love getting people on who talk about all the teams so they can compare things and they can talk about things from a much more broad and pragmatic level, as opposed to, the microscopic level that we're breaking things down here on a day-to-day basis at times. So I'll talk about the guests that I'm having on Thursday and Friday, big names. I'll talk about that in the third segment, but Vance Joseph is getting some blowback here. For those that haven't listened before and are listening for the first time or watching, thank you. I do appreciate it. I love doing this. I love, growing the audience, having conversations. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you'd like. I see the pie chart of blame, if there were to be one, going as so. 40% I would give to Steve Keim, because I don't think that he builds rosters effectively enough and deeply enough to warrant the longevity of a 17-game season plus playoffs. That's one. I would give probably 30% of the blame to Cliff Kingsbury, because I don't think that he's equipped to elevate talent on a roster like other coaches are. He's obviously got them from 3 to 5 to 8 to 11. I don't know why he gets credit from people from how bad the roster was in 2018. They didn't have Kyler Murray. They didn't have DeAndre Hopkins in 2020 when he came in. It's different. I don't understand the comparison, but give 30% of the blame to him, because what we saw in week 1 of last year was the same problems. Even though the Cardinals blew out Tennessee, I saw in the first drive, turnover by the defense, false start inside the 10-yard line, penalty, timeout, field goal. That's what I saw from the Cardinals offense. I put that on Cliff Kingsbury. Penalties, I put on the coach. You put on the coach because that's discipline, that's reps, that's practice. I put that on the coach. So that's 30%. So that's 70 left. I'll give Kyler Murray 15%, and I'll give Vance Joseph 15%. And I think that that's fair, because Vance Joseph, I have some numbers here in a second, but what Vance Joseph did in 2020 was what Cliff Kingsbury couldn't do in 2021. Chandler Jones went down week 5, I think, against the Jets, out for the year. That defense got better after Chandler Jones went out. That's what a coach does, elevates the talent on the roster, regardless of if the best player on the field is on the field or not. 2021, DeAndre Hopkins goes out, everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. And that's not the only thing that happened, but obviously it's a very integral part of the offense when your wide receiver 1 gets injured and he's out for the year. And then they just lose a whole bunch of games afterwards. Defense got better in 2020 when Chandler Jones went out. Offense got worse and didn't adapt at all when DeAndre Hopkins went out in 2021. That's the differentiation between the two. That's why I side more with Vance Joseph and give him more of leeway and more benefit of the doubt, because we've seen him elevate talent. We've seen him do it from the head coach of the defense and his ability to maintain when things don't go perfectly. And that's why I give Vance Joseph the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I give him too much. It's possible. Like the biggest conversation that's had on Twitter, et cetera, is does he not play rookies because they're not ready, or does he not play rookies because he doesn't play rookies? Is that a thing? And the Cardinals are notorious for not like, so it's funny. The Cardinals are notorious for really not highlighting rookies early on, yet the roster is built as such where players that are just drafted have to play an integral role or this team's not going to win. I'm going to say that again. The Cardinals are notorious for really not playing rookies early on. But the way the roster is currently constructed, the Cardinals have to play rookies if they want to win because they don't have the depth necessary. Like somebody said this on TV and it was genius. I can't remember exactly who it was, but it wasn't what I said. I think it might have been Mina Kimes on NFL Live. It was, if you're drafting for depth, you're a Super Bowl contender. If you're drafting for need, you're not. And that's kind of where we see the Cardinals. And this is obviously a very pivotal and kind of confusing offseason. I think confusing's fair. I don't think that's a slight. I think it's a confusing offseason. And we don't really understand the direction of where Steve Keim is taking this roster. We understand that the offense, it's tipped the scale immensely, like unequivocally, to where the offense is now forcibly the strength of this team, when in fact, the last 3 years, I think the defense was the strength. So now, like, if the Cardinals aren't a top 4 or 5 offense and they win 8 games, we're going to have very uncomfortable conversations come this offseason, even with the extensions. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will forcibly be, all things considered, even with DeAndre Hopkins out for the first 6 weeks. I'm going to talk about the schedule. It's very favorable after the first couple weeks during the first half before their bye. But uncomfortable conversations are going to get really uncomfortable if the Cardinals win 7 or 8 games this year. And I've had them going 11-6. I think they're going to front load the hell out of their wins like they did last year. But it's a confusing offseason. And Vance Joseph, he's going to have his biggest task yet because this defense has taken a step back. There's obviously smart, athletic players at every position. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fusion of the 11 guys on the field. Obviously, you've got Budda Baker. He's your anchor. Okay? You've got J.J. Watt up front. If he can play 12 or 13 games this year, that's a win. Because regardless of if he's 60 or 70% of what he once was, the on-the-field leadership, the blood, the messy jersey, like, he's still J.J. Watt. And he has to be accounted for by opposing offensive lines. He just does. Regardless of if he's all-pro or not anymore, which obviously is not. But then it's like, is Byron Murphy the guy? Is Marco Wilson going to be the guy part 2? Are Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins going to be able to withstand the rigors of a 17-week season and excel at some of their weak spots from their first couple years in the league, respectively? A lot of question marks, and Isaiah Simmons or Vance Joseph is going to be the conductor, and he's going to have to figure out how to elevate the roster that hasn't really been like, with Chandler Jones gone, they haven't done anything to replace the pass rush. Now, I know Marcus Golden is probably he's got the most thankless job on the defense because all he does is produce, and he doesn't get talked about a lot. And that's probably on me. I should discuss him a little bit more, and maybe I will tomorrow. But overall, Vance Joseph, do I think I give him a little bit more leeway? Yeah, I do. But I also think that he's done his job a lot better than Cliff Kingsbury has, which warrants a little bit more leeway. Now, before we do this, before we move on to the schedule, I know I'm going a little long today, I want to run these numbers down quickly and just show the growth of this defense from when Vance Joseph took over in 2019 through last season. So in 2019, they were 28th in points per game at 27.5, and 27th in takeaways at 17 takeaways in 16 games. Not good. In 2020, they were 12th in points per game at 22.9, and they were 18th in turnovers at 21. So they jumped up a bunch of spots in both. And then last year, they were 10th in points per game at 21.5 and 7th in total turnovers with 27. The growth of this defense is because of Vance Joseph. And that's something that needs to be remembered, especially if things go awry this season and they're looking for somebody to be a scapegoat. Unfortunately, it's going to be him because he's not the one that has the long-term deal. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Coming up next, the schedule. I'm going to give a little taste, okay? We're going to do this way more in depth, but I'm going to give a little taste about this schedule because even though there are murderer's row spots, we're in Cupcake Alley for like 2 spots, which is where you have to get wins. It's like the scoring holes at the Masters. It's, you gotta get wins when you gotta get wins. And there's a couple spots. I'm going to talk about it next. Locked On Cardinals. First, Built Bar. Okay. We've done mud pie. We've done the birthday cake puff. Okay. Now it's time. This, I believe, consensus-wise, from our Locked On NFL guys and gals, is the best tasting protein bar on the planet. Coconut brownie chunk puff. Okay. Picture everything your parents told you couldn't eat when you were younger, for breakfast, for dinner, for dessert, whatever, in a protein bar that's good for you. Low sugar, low calorie, high protein, high fiber. Coconut brownie chunk puffs, mic drop. Mic drop. Okay. Flavors you love, chewy marshmallow, covered in 100% real chocolate. It's like a fluffy cloud of coconut brownie goodness. And it's good for, it's wild. It's good for you. Okay. They taste amazing. You can eat them guilt-free. It's legitimately like eating a candy bar for breakfast. It truly is. Delicious coconut, rich sweet brownie, creamy marshmallow. Stop fantasizing. Get to Built.com to order your box of coconut brownie chunk puffs right now. Go to Built.com, use promo code Locked On and get 10% off your order. Use promo code Locked On for 10% off at Built.com. All right, final segment. Alex Clancy here. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. This Wednesday, Thursday, Friday thing, I might have to go back to every day, man. I can't only do this 3 days a week. Okay. Just a little inside the actor studio there. Okay. We talked Kyler Murray. We've talked Vance Joseph, and I want to talk a little schedule. Schedule talk is always fun. There's always different storylines. There's always different things to talk about. So, I don't know, if you've been listening for a while, thank you. If this is your first listen, thanks very much. I do appreciate it. Hopefully tomorrow will make your second listen. I still think the Arizona Cardinals, or I did think at one time that the Arizona Cardinals needed to add another wide receiver if the first 6 weeks of their calendar, of their schedule, was a murderer's-ish row with DeAndre Hopkins out. And it is. Their first 3 games are brutal. At home against Kansas City, on the road in Vegas, at home against the Rams. And then, so that's the murderer's row part, okay? And then Cupcake Alley, what did I call it? Cupcake Alley. They go on the road to Carolina, at home against Philly, on the road to Seattle, at home against New Orleans, on the road to Minnesota, and at home against Seattle. That's 6 games, 6 very winnable games. So if the Cardinals win 1 out of the first 3, just say erring on the side of caution, I mean, they're 7-2 through week 9? Like that. If they win all those games, obviously. I mean, getting 2 games against Seattle early on is here's the thing. Stacking wins early, like the Cardinals have done, they've gotten pretty good at over the last 2 years, is so much better, in my opinion, than, oh, great. You got a great cupcake last 4 weeks of the season. You have no idea what the hell's going to happen. There are 5 NFL seasons between now and then. So getting those early wins it's important. And the Cardinals playing Seattle twice in 4 weeks after having to play Kansas City at home, then on the road to the Raiders, then at home against the Rams, that eats up 2 of their home games. Like, I know there's a lot of question marks surrounding the roster. I know there's a lot of question marks surrounding Kyler Murray, surrounding why Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim got contract extensions, like the defense, everything. When it comes to the first 9 weeks of the season, it is not outside of the realm of possibility that the Cardinals can go 7-2 or 6-3, which is half the season. Then you got to find 5 wins elsewhere. Like, chunking it down that way, we could have a very fun October and half of November. It could be a very, very fun, jolly, happy time to be an Arizona Cardinals fan through October in the middle of December with the schedules constructed. I'll leave you with that. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Tomorrow, Benjamin Albright, one of the best national media guys out there, insider. He's big in the Broncos. I'm going to ask him a little bit about the transformation of the Broncos organization after trading for Russell Wilson, the comparison between Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray that's out there. Benjamin Albright is going to join me tomorrow, Locked On Cardinals. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day, free and available on all platforms. The first picks of the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft have been made. Search now for Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and get over 50 insiders, the Odyssey sports experts, the draft experts of Locked On, NBA Big Board, etc. The 5-episode Ultimate NBA Mock Draft is underway. Make Ultimate NBA Mock Draft your second listen today. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Talk to you tomorrow.